this division definitely saved his career.
Milan Sadek.
All right, Milan Sadek from the Czech Republic arrives here. He won the under 212 event in Charlotte. He's actually making his Olympia debut, so we're going to get a look at a physique that has that young, clean muscle. This is a very different look than a lot of these wily veterans that we've seen so far.
Another second competitor from the Czech Republic, so that's very interesting. The Czechs are over there doing the business of bodybuilding, and he's got a nice, fresh look, like he said. And he's definitely a guy that's going to have to like get out there so people know more about who he is. And sometimes that comes at a price, Dan. You got to compete a lot for people to know who you are. But now with social media, you've got to kind of engage your fans, and you got to put yourself out there as well. We'll find out what he's going to do with the results. Sometimes you got to compete in a show this big to get the right pictures, to get the right feedback, to let people know who you are.
And tonight you're standing in front of the top photographers in the world, being covered on the Amazon.com worldwide coverage, and it's a great opportunity for everybody who steps on this stage to connect with a whole lot of people. And like you said, you know, when we start talking about guys like Phil Heath kind of took a chapter out of your book because you only competed once a year. That was your kind of your move to keep your body fresh, and you were able to maintain a degree of longevity. So for those guys who are doing that now, these contests are just so important because it gives them such a valuable opportunity to connect with fans, and in the case of Milan, he's clearly taking advantage of that opportunity.
He's got a nice little package, man. He's got to put some more meat on the bone in the back. He's got to thicken up the lower back, maybe do some deadlifts. He's got to definitely work a little bit more on getting heavier in the offseason, I imagine, because he looks like a very thin 212-pound bodybuilder.
And your final competitor from the United Kingdom.
Doing things together. So this was a big blow, devastating, to Flex Lewis as well, what transpired with Dallas McCarver. So a lot of athletes, you know, have been affected by this, and obviously it becomes trivial in the grand scheme of things. We're talking about bodybuilding, but really what it comes down to it is both Jocelyn Artowitz and Flex Lewis, they have been deeply affected by that situation, and to some degree, it may have impacted what we're seeing on stage.
Well, yeah, I mean, listen, a guy gets in a fight with his girlfriend, it's hard to keep on the diet. A guy loses his job or things aren't going, it gets emotional. It's a very emotional time for a guy like Flex Lewis. They were training in his gym, they spoke every day. He went to the funeral, and again, he's got to defend this title, and he's got to do what he has to do. He's got to provide for his family, he's got to defend his title, and this is what he lives for. So it'll be very interesting when they get these comparison call-outs. I'm curious to see what happens.
All right, so now this is the point of the judging where Steve gets all the requests from the judging panel. And we're going to go back to those call-outs in just a second. And once they're able to kind of figure out what the panel wants to see, and we'll get the initial comparisons, and we'll get that coveted first call-out.
Yeah, it's pretty predictable. We're going to wind up with James Flex Lewis out there and Ahmad Ashkanani. Of course, the veteran David Henry will be out there. I can imagine Sean Clarita would be there.
All right, we've reached the great spot to take a quick break here on our coverage of the 2017 Olympia weekend. We're back with the final portion of our 212 judging after the break.
Milan and Flex.
All right, great. We're going to go ahead and stick around because they're bringing these guys through the call-outs. We'll hold off on the break until after this portion of the judging completes. So we're going to now get our first look at Flex Lewis standing behind David Henry. And when you look at both of those guys on the left, you're looking at two champions of this division, one the reigning and one a former champion. But Flex Lewis has assumed his spot near the center next to Ahmad Ashkanani.
And that's what we expect. I think those are going to wind up being the odds-on final two competitors standing. Ahmad, the reigning defending Arnold Classic champion, and of course James Flex Lewis. That's what people want to see. But David Henry had something to say about that. A very loud opposition to Ahmad winning out there in Columbus, Ohio. I was not amongst them. I thought Ahmad had that competition, but David is a formidable competitor that might move up. But right now, James isn't blowing anybody off that stage.
It looks to me like Flex Lewis has opened the door for somebody to crawl through it I don't know if anybody's going to. I don't know if anybody up there flat out did what they had to do to win the title. And they always say you have to knock out the champ. I'm not a big believer in that premise. But I don't know that anybody up there looks like they have clearly shown up with a career best. And when a guy wins an Olympia title in any division, you want to do it at your all-time best. I don't know that anybody up there has done something that I think is going to scare Flex Lewis out of the building.
No, and at the end of the day, the one guy that I thought would be Ahmad. He's just wider across the shoulders, but James, you can look at his hamstrings.
Doesn't Flex win that shot?
Yeah, the glutes, the hamstrings. It's one of those things where his conditioning is carrying him through, even though he's not at his best.
It seems like when Flex Lewis goes into his pose, that's where he starts to pull ahead a little bit. When he's in a more relaxed position, he looks like he's carrying a little bit of water and kind of creating an opportunity for somebody else. But Flex Lewis seems to have positioned himself, but Ahmad Ashkanani is going to do everything he can to try to take down the champ. It is not easy to win this title as many times as Flex Lewis has. In fact, no one's ever done it.
And it's got to be getting harder because he's got a baby at home now. So it's a different dynamic when you're training for a show of this magnitude. You got a friend that passes away. You got a baby that's crying for milk, and you got a wife that's out there, you know, spending all the money, and you're running a gym. A lot more responsibilities on the champion's shoulders, which might contribute to him not being as he was when he was in his gladiator days. But right now, he's going to have to fight for this title. It's not a walk in the park, and we don't want to leave it to the judges. As the boxing analysis goes, you want to knock the champion out, and the champion can't get comfortable. That title does not have his name on it until his name is announced tomorrow.
Thank you, gentlemen. Back in line.
But I was surprised they didn't move David Henry in. I thought he was worthy of getting a comparison next to the champion. Not a gimme, but he's legitimately should have been compared in that call.
I was thinking that too. As they walked away, I thought David Henry could have had an opportunity to battle. Go ahead and do some interviews, so we're going to throw it to Sean in just a couple minutes. But right now, it has been an absolute thrill taking you through the action here tonight on Amazon Sports Nutrition's presentation of Joe Weider's Olympia Fitness and Performance Weekend. I'm Dan Solomon along with Sean Ray, bringing out the athletes who competed here in the 212 division and are not among the top 5. And Sean Ray, it looks like we have ourselves a bit of a battle. Now, with regard to Flex Lewis, the talk was, did he open the door to create an opportunity for somebody else? And I don't know that he did, but I certainly don't know that there's anybody in this lineup who's better than Flex Lewis tonight.
No, I mean, the door was open. Nobody sees the day. This was Ahmad Ashkanani's show to win. But again, Ahmad's coming all the way from Kuwait. It's a long trip to come from Kuwait, whereas James came in from Florida. Granted, he had all those disadvantages. However, James is that good, and Ashkanani may have served a little bit better by arriving in Las Vegas maybe a couple of weeks early to train here instead of a couple of days early. Right now, I think James did enough to pull this title off.
Well, these guys trying to make the most of their stage time, their opportunity, and you know, a bunch of streaks are on the line tonight. Phil Heath.